The Morgan Report with David Morgan.
David Morgan of themorganreport.com for the week ending 3 February 2023. The Morgan Report will be published this weekend, and I wanted to start with a quote, which I do in the report every time. This is from Robert Hemphill, credit manager of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, and I was in a foreword of the book by Irving Fisher, titled 100% Money, 1935. So obviously he's long deceased, but I think it still has bearing on where we are now. And the quote says, if all the bank loans were paid, no one would have a bank deposit, and there would not be a dollar of coin or currency in circulation. This is a staggering thought. We are completely dependent on the commercial banks. Someone has to borrow every dollar we have in synthetic money. We are prosperous. If not, we starve. We are absolutely without a permanent money system. When one gets a complete grasp of the picture, the tragic absurdity of our hopeless position is almost incredible, but there it is. It is the most important subject intelligent persons can investigate and reflect upon. It is so important that our present civilization may collapse unless it becomes widely understood and the defects remedied very soon. The whole thing is excellent in my opinion, but what I find very interesting is the part here where he talks about it is the most important subject intelligent persons can investigate and reflect upon. Now, you may or may not agree with that, and that is something that I even question at this point in our history, because with all this happening, the food supply and the breakdowns and the war and everything else, but nonetheless, everything still depends on money and monetary flow, currency, if you will. Currency's got to flow and be trusted. So this is something that I go into in the editorial this month. And let's move on to some more interesting topics. From Reuters, gold slides over 2% as robust jobs report stokes hawkish Fed fears. And as we know that the Fed raised interest rates by 0.25%, and a lot of people think they're ready to pivot on the next raise or the next time they meet. And I think that remains to be determined. I think they're still under pressure to raise interest rates, but we'll find out soon enough. Well, the question that's asked continuously is what are gold and silver prices going to do this year? This comes from the LBMA. And the rules of the game, they ask bank analysts particularly, and summary of the comments over here on the left. Gold forecast is average here around 1,860, I'll call it. The low forecast was right around 1,600 and the high was over 2,000. My take is it's going to be over 2,000 sometime during the year and probably more than $25 over 2,000, but we'll see. Silver forecast, the average 21.73. The average made it 23.65, the low 17.50, and the highest 27. Platinum, 10.80 was the average, 9.88 the low, and 12.41 was the high. And for palladium, 21.12 was the average price, 18 was the average forecast, and 15.50 the low, with 21.80 being the high. Again, you can find this on the LBMA website. Another opinion on the silver price in 2023, $30 per ounce. This is from Seeking Alpha. Anna, I won't mess up your last name, so I won't even try. Pretty good article, in my view. You can take a look if you are a member of Seeking Alpha. This one may be for free. I'm really not sure. This report's from Kitco, the world's largest silver producing countries in 2022 report. Vladimir Basov, I think I could pronounce that name, shows you here on this graph that in 2022, the projection is about 26,000, which is higher than the last two illness years. But you can see it's right along with what the silver production's been for the last 7-8 years. There's not a lot more silver coming to the fore over the next few years, in my estimation, for a variety of reasons. And this chart here shows the countries that are producing the most silver, and you can see the comparison between 2021 and 2022. And in most cases, 2022 was a higher production than the previous year. This may be slightly distorted. I don't know. The numbers here are the best obtainable. I won't argue that. China is very kind of cagey about their precious metals production. I think it's higher than what's shown in this graph, but I can't prove it. I can tell you that I was told that by people in the know, but you can take that with a grain of salt or for 2 cents. Regardless, You can see the main countries. Now, what's interesting here is that China doesn't export any silver anymore. Peru is a big producer, as is Mexico. I think Mexico is safe for the foreseeable future. Chile and Peru may be politically having some issues that could, not would, curtail exports. I don't see that immediately, but something to bear in mind. And of course, you can look at the rest of these main countries on being obviously contributors to the silver supply, but not anything like the top 3 or 4. And finally, a comment again on China. Silver may outperform if China doesn't relapse into lockdowns. I think that's a true statement. Wrote about that in this month's Morgan report that will be issued later today. This part here is a pretty good summary, rather succinct. Money flowed from precious metals to debt instruments as the yields moved higher. Over the past 3 months, inflation has begun to cool across the globe. There is anticipation that central banks will become less aggressive in hiking interest rates. This development has led to demand for precious metals, as Ravi Gheni, fund manager, GSP Mutual Fund. Hence, gold and silver have both rallied. Silver has a negative correlation with the dollar. This article from Recycling Today Beyond Precious Metals Refining talks about Haney and Hardman, and that they have started a new division that basically takes e-waste and recycles it. You're going to see more of this in the future. There is a big e-waste situation at hand, but it's not nearly as big as it could be because a lot of it still ends up in landfills. But as the ESG situation continues to put pressure on the environmental situation, you're going to see more and more demand for electronic waste to come to some type of collection center and be recycled. And anyone that's followed our premium service, and I might have said it in the public domain a couple times, but been bullish platinum for a while now, 3 months or so, and not nearly as bullish on palladium. In fact, I've talked about a spread trade, long platinum, short palladium for a variety of reasons. And here's Reuters that came out on the 31st of January. Platinum prices decline as palladium sinks. A Reuters poll. You can read the article. It's pretty short. Basically, it says what I just mentioned. And for the rare earth element fans out there, this is from Breitbart. Sweden and Turkey find massive rare earth deposits threatening China. You can look up this article for yourself. Kind of the key point here is that the South China Morning Post on Sunday suggested Sweden's discovery of 1 million metric tons of rare earth oxides could be a game changer because it might inspire the Europeans to invest in the refining capability needed to break China's market dominance, a leading position held by the United States until 1980 when onerous regulations caused the American rare earth mining industry to collapse. That'll be a wrap for this week's Weekly Perspective. This is David Morgan of morganreport.com signing off.